You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Yep, it's the world's most dangerous morning show, The Breakfast Club. Charlamagne the God, Angela Yee, DJ Envy is out of town somewhere. We got a special guest in the building.
Yes, Jumaane Williams.
Yes.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me.
What's up, my brother?
Here. I'm good.
Now, tell them what you're doing. You're running for?
Lieutenant, I'm a council member now. I'm in Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn
in the house, always. But I'm running now to be lieutenant governor of the state of New York, from Brooklyn to the Buffalo area, all over the state.
What do you have to offer, man?
Well, I have a different vision of what this office should be. It's quite interesting. The vision of the current lieutenant governor is basically be the eyes and ears of the governor, do whatever the governor says to do, and basically kind of an expensive ribbon-cutting ceremonial position. I reject that outright, and so I'm running to be the eyes and the ears of the people of the state of New York. I'm running to be the people's lieutenant governor, lift up their voices. You obviously, work with the governor when he or hopefully she is doing the work of the people. When that's not happening, when you got people touting a universal free tuition program, but only 3% of students statewide have it, or almost 2% students in CUNY like myself have it, someone has to be able to step up with courage and say, the emperor has no clothes. And Albany has been missing that for far too long. So on September 13th, the Democratic primary, I'm running as a Democrat, but I believe any blue just won't do. And so I think we don't have this orange madness because of, not every Republican is a bigot, but every bigot voted for Trump.
Ooh.
And the bigots did what they were supposed to do. They voted for the person who was speaking. The Democratic Party didn't do what they were supposed to do. They didn't have the courage of their convictions to adopt a message, whomever the candidate was, that was appealing.
That's my problem with them now. Like, I don't see what messaging they're giving to the people. You know what I'm saying?
They're doing the same old thing, and that's why I decided to run for this position. It's a powerful position that everybody kind of glosses over.
Right.
I've been calling myself an activist, elected official since I got elected.
Not a politician.
Nah. Politicians are who we have now, which is why we are where we are. It just so happened in 2018, being an activist is popular, so everybody's saying it, even though I've never seen them in the streets at all. But that's the kind of people that I believe we need now. Not people who are responding to the wins, like the governor, like the lieutenant governor, but people who have helped create the wins that are moving finally in the right direction. But we don't want people to adopt a message. You should hear the governor and lieutenant governor now trying to talk about concepts that they have no idea how to speak about.
I saw you asking, what have you ever challenged as far as things that the governor has wanted to do, and she couldn't answer.
She had no answer.
Or anything that she's implemented through her challenges.
Every answer has to do with the governor and I. And we said, the question was, what has happened that would not have happened if your perception of the lieutenant governor's office, you weren't here? Could be nothing. What have you done that you pushed the governor on? Nothing. And that's what the problem is. And so it's not to be adversarial just for its own sake, but someone has to be there making sure that the people's work is getting done. And so all the things the governor when lip service doesn't match up with the action, somebody has to be there to hold people accountable for that. And we're missing that right now.
Now, you were also called not by name, but you were called a charismatic young black man. Do you think that things like that just are, in a subtle way, trying to deliver a message? Facts.
I mean, in the South, they are not as diplomatic, so they'll call Andrew Gillum, don't monkey it up. That's what they say. They also call them charismatic right after that. So in the North, we're a little bit, more sophisticated with it. So in the email, it was telling people that we should be afraid because the current lieutenant governor is running against a charismatic young black man.
Not Jumaane Williams, just a charismatic young black man.
Not the 9 years I've been in the council, not the fact that I've been voted the most productive council member in the 51-member body after the speaker, not the 49 bills I've passed, more than any city council member, not the effects that we've had on the budget, not the work that we did around gun violence and stop, question, and frisk and police reform issues. None of that. Just a charismatic young black man. I
don't want to put your name out there because I don't want people to remember your name, because then they're might vote for you.
Yeah, that's true. That's a fact. Yeah. But the dog whistling that we hear, we've heard it before. That's actually a similar language that they used for Jesse Jackson when he ran. If you remember Biden, when he spoke about Barack Obama, basically said he's articulate, and I think another version of charismatic. That's the words that they use to stoke fear in a certain population. Right before that, they attacked me about having debt, which 75% of the people of this country have. They did the same thing to Stacey Abrams in Georgia. She wrote an awesome article about why her debt does not preclude her from being a great governor.
Well, that's what happens when you're not a crooked politician. Because if you was a crooked politician, you wouldn't have no debt. Because you're taking all this money under the table, and you'd be good.
And that also brings up the issue of housing here in New York. You know, it's really hard for people to find some place to even live because it's so expensive. We're getting priced out of so many different things.
Housing is probably the most palpable failure of Governor Cuomo. If you go all across this state, it's like a complete and abject failure. And that's because, to Charlamagne's point, the amount of money that he gets from the real estate industry, you can see directly why he is supporting certain things or not supporting certain things. And next year, actually, rent regulation is up in New York City and surrounding suburbs. So we got to focus on that. As bad as it is in New York City, across the state, tenants have no protection. So you can just get evicted for any reason at all. They don't have to tell you anything. They just go to the judge and get you out.
I always thought it was really hard to evict people.
It's a lot more difficult in New York City. I always want to say I also have had tenants. I've had tenants owe me $30,000, so I know how difficult it is to navigate that system. That's been part of the issue with my house that I've been opening up. But I also know, being a community organizer by training, tenant organizer in particular, how difficult it is for tenants in this state and in this city to navigate waters and find real, deeply affordable, income targeted, and safe housing. But outside of the city and the state, they're trying to fight in the suburbs. They're trying to fight for something called just cause, because it is extremely easy to evict people outside of this city. You basically just they'll go to the judge, say, I want the house, and they take it. And that is a problem, because from month to month, or lease to lease, you have no idea where we're going to live. Even in New York City, there's something called preferential rent that most people don't even know they have. They've gotten the apartment at a specific level because the market couldn't afford it. But now with the gentrification, even no matter what the Rent Guidelines Board said, you can have a $1,000 apartment and they raise it to $3,000 because the market can now bear it, and you have preferential rent. That's basically the same as an eviction. A rent hike often is equatable to an eviction.
I thought there was only a certain amount of percentage points they could raise your rent every single year.
And for unregulated tenants, that is correct, but that is it's confusing because that is a percentage over the market. So if you have, say they raise it 1%, you go up that much for the market. But the problem is people got their homes when the market was depressed.
Right.
So the market rate was, say, $100, and the rent you got was $50. So now you can go from anywhere to $50 up into what the market now has.
That's crazy.
It's ridiculous. And when I was a tenant organizer, the big thing that people talk about is the price point. But I would have to ask people, if you want me to help get your toilet fixed or your hole patched up, I can. But if you're not rent regulated, they might not give you the lease again. And so that is critically important, that rent regulation gives you an automatic lease renewal so that you can ask for repairs that you need without the fear of being evicted. It's critically important. Now, with the preferential rent that the governor has done nothing about, it basically takes away the protection that was needed.
Now, you and Cynthia Nixon are running together. Why Cynthia Nixon?
That's an easy one for me. If you look at this governor, the way he came into office, people don't remember. He came in talking about he wants to bust up unions on a very conservative bent. He picked a conservative lieutenant governor 4 years ago, the person I'm running against now, because he believed that that's what needed to be done. Now that we've swung left, he's trying to change that. Cynthia Nixon is not that type of person. She's been fighting for education issues for 17 years. She's coming in with the message that is what's needed, the message I believe in and agree in. So for me, when you have somebody's history and you see what they've done and not done, and you have someone who's saying what they want to do from the beginning, that was an easy call for me.
I like Cynthia Nixon. I think I was talking about her yesterday. She's the one who wants to, she had a plan to use cannabis as reparations, the cannabis industry.
Yeah. I
agree with it, actually.
I would have rephrased it a little bit. I definitely believe in reparations and making amends for things that happen. I think there's a lot of ways to do that besides cannabis. But she was correct in saying, one, that we should have a reparations discussion. Two, we must legalize marijuana, recreational marijuana. And we're moving in that direction and have been. Activists like myself have now made it popular and safe for establishment Democrats to talk about it. So hopefully it'll finally happen. My hope is that we have activists elected in this cycle to actually get it done. But everybody knows it should be legalized, and we see it. But most importantly, the two things that we have to make sure are stated in this discussion: we have to expunge the records of people who have criminal records. Seattle did that 30 years going back, which is amazing. And also, we have to make sure that people who have been trying to survive off of the sale of cannabis have access to sell it when it is legal. Right now, the way the governor allowed it, with even the small part that is legal, if you have a criminal record, you can't even apply to sell it. Now, what sense does that make? So you have people who are trying to eat and have to sell a product. Now you made that product legal. You're not going to access them to be able to sell it.
Right.
Now they got to find something else.
Can activists truly be politicians?
I don't know about politicians. I have been a productive activist elected official, and people said that when I ran against an incumbent, they told me not to do it.
I like that. Okay.
I did it anyway. I won, and I've been trying to cause as much trouble as possible in the past 9 years on the city council in this city, and I sought out to show that you can be a productive activist elected official. As I mentioned, we would rank the most productive council member after the speaker in a 52-member body. 49 pieces of legislation, hard piece of legislation. I took the legislation that everybody said can't be done, whether it was dealing with stop, question, and frisk, the abuses of, dealing with ban the box, making sure that they can't ask you a question about your criminal history, making sure that domestic violence victims are protected, veterans are protected, a whole swath of things that people said couldn't be done. We got it done. And so I was trying to show there's a different type of moat that can happen. And it's important because I want to make sure that people see we don't have to go along to get along. I didn't get elected to get reelected. I didn't get elected to get another job that's higher. I got elected to do a job. Mm-hmm. I hope that gets me reelected. I hope I get a higher job. But we have to change the focus. And too many politicians in particular make decisions what's best for them at the sake of the people they represent.
When is the election again?
September 13th.
September 13th.
Yeah, September 13th. You got to make sure you get out and vote.
Please. Look, Andrew Gillum was not expected to win in Florida, but people came out and voted. Hip-hop folks came out and voted. Black and brown people came out and voted in droves, and that's why he won. We had the same demographics here. We can do the same thing. It's important. Really quick, I want to talk about identity politics because it's important that people see themselves in leadership, whether it's race, gender, sexual orientation, religion. But I always say I don't want to ask people to vote for me just because I'm a black man. If you want to do that, I don't want to lose those votes. So, but I always say I want people to vote for me because of the vision that I've laid out for the office and what I've done in the past 9 years. That's the meal to me. Identity is just the gravy. So without the meal, there's no sustenance. So, but identity on top of the meal is important. So I am a black man. I have Tourette's syndrome. People may see me shake a little bit. ADHD. I made it through the public school system from preschool to master's. I'm a first-generation American. My parents from the Caribbean. My mother raised 2 children by herself, 2 knucklehead kids by herself. And so that identity on top of the meal is critically important. And I know as a fact, that's what we need in 2018 to go against this orange madness they're trying to push down on us.
And you have a whole entire plan that's mapped out that people can see for themselves also.
Absolutely. Go to my website, JumaneWilliams.com. And we also have a plan that deals with fairness fees, how we can get $20 billion, it's $20 billion with a B, right now to deal with issues of Cuomo's housing crisis, Cuomo's MTA transportation crisis, the issues with the schools, dealing with renewable energy that people sometimes talk about, sometimes don't. But if we build an infrastructure with that, we can really get to the renewable energy numbers we want while creating jobs for people. The number one thing to cut violent crime arrests in half for a young person is a job.
Yep.
And so I focused on getting jobs in the city council. We went from 25,000 job slots to 100,000 people applying. We're now up to 75,000, trying to get to 100,000. I said we can't have $5 billion budget for the police department while not providing jobs for our young people. And that's a discussion that we have to continue to have. We're doing better with violence here in the city, believe it or not, than the rest of the state. And that's because folks like myself and others had to provide a leadership on dealing with gun violence as a public health issue, making sure we don't equate policing with public safety, that there's a whole swath of things that have to come along that with the partnership. And, they told us when we were trying to do what we were doing 6 years ago with the abusive stop, question, frisk, and a different way of dealing with gun violence, that the city would crack open, sky would crack open, black and brown people fall from it and destroy the entire city. We did it 6-7 years later. We're the safest city we've been since 1951. Right. And I always want to mention, if you're a victim of crime, data means nothing to you because it happened to you. But we are moving in the right direction. So much better than Buffalo, Albany. Suffolk County has one of the highest rates per capita of gun violence in the state. That's because there's no one providing the same kind of leadership.
Word. So go out there, man. Jumaane Williams.
Jumaane,
Jumaane Williams, September 13th.
September 13th.
Yes, sir.
Any blue just won't do.
Any blue just won't do. Thank you for coming, brother.
Peace. Appreciate y'all.
It's the Breakfast Club.